This morning I was having a couple issues when I was trying to show how I was adjusting something in Auto Borders, so that is the purpose of this video. But I decided I would just go all the way back to where I was importing the panel so you can see it step by step because I felt like we were kind of in a hurry. So I'm going to go to my browser. And I'm on HoffmanCaliforniaFabrics.net. And I'm going to go to their fabrics page, and then the panel I was using was out of the American Wild category, and I was using the Eagle. You could use any one of the three. So I'm just going to click on it, and I want to point out that most manufacturers, or at least a lot of them, tend to put the size of the panel in the description. So that's helpful when we go to resize it in Electric Quilt. So I'm going to right click on the image and say Save Image As. And usually this would be going into my Downloads folder, so I'm going to just switch to it. And I want to point out the name is actually the product number for this panel from Hoffman. I like to, at the end of that, add in the size. So if I don't use it immediately, I know what it is when I go to open it up. So it's 42 3/4 by 29, and I'm going to say save. So it's downloading, and then I don't need the browser anymore, so I'm going to close it. So now I'm on my home screen for Electric Quilt or 8, and I need to go edit or import that panel. So I have a couple of options here. Actually, I have 3. I can click on Import and Edit Fabric Images. I can click on the Image Work Table up here, or I could go to the Work Table menu here and choose Image Work Table. All 3 of them will take you to the exact same place. So I'm going to click Import and Edit Fabric Images. So what I need to do is import the image so I can work on it. And I know that I have it in my download folder, so I'm going to click on Downloads, and there it is right there. So I'm going to click on that. You can either double click it or say Open. And here it opened, and I can look at it, and obviously it is not the 42 3/4 wide. It's only 6.5. So to get it the right size, I'm going to click on the Scale Fabric tool, and then I'm going to go down here where it says Measure Fabric Distance in inches. That's how wide it is. So if you had an actual panel in front of you that you had purchased, you could just use a measuring tape and measure it to put that number in. But we know that on their description they said that this panel was 42 3/4 inches. I'm going to click Apply, and it's going to take a minute. And what I want you to see, I'm going to zoom it so it's full, is if we look at the rulers now, it is seeing this as that 42 3/4 wide and has adjusted it also to the 29 high. It just knows that. So it's on my image work table right now. I cannot use it in a quilt until I have added it to my sketchbook. So over here, I'm going to click on the Add to Project Sketchbook. And I don't have it named yet, so I'm going to say OK, and I'm just going to say Eagle Auto Borders. You can name it whatever you want, and save. OK. So now I have my panel, and I'm ready to work on my quilt. So I can just click on the Quilt Work Table right here, and we will go over to the New Quilt tab, and it defaults to horizontal, and that's what I want. So otherwise, I would need to click one of these other types. I'm going to go to Layout, and it's a panel in the center, so that's only 1 block by 1 block. So I'm just going to change that. And then I need to change the size of my block. I had it on my my name of the file, but I also wrote it down, so I know it's 42 3/4 wide by 29 inches high. And I don't want any sashing, so that's great. So I'm going to click over to Borders, and to start off, I'm just going to leave the default 1-inch border as an inner border. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I just kind of like it for framing purposes. And then I'm going to add one more border, and you can set that to whatever width you want because we will be coming back and changing that. So I think I'll just set it to 6 inches. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the Design tab, and we're going to click on that. So if we want to put that panel in the center to start, we're going to click on Photo Tools. Click on that, and we want to set a photo. We only have one, so that makes life easy, and I'm going to click on it, and it just put the panel in the middle of my quilt. I am going to now click on Auto Borders. So Auto Borders is really fun because it has a whole bunch of different styles of borders, and when I click in the border that I want to put it in, it's automatically going to fill that border in. So I do want to point out that each category, if we do the drop down menu, there are several categories. Each category has multiple borders in it that you can scroll through. So it's fun to just go play with them. So like the one that has diamonds, these are set on point, and I want to show you both for the differences. But for starters, let's just go with, oh, I don't know. It doesn't matter. We could just do checked. So if I look at these, I can see they're based on squares because I can see it right here, but there's another way that you can see it even easier. So let's just pick one. I'm going to go with this one, and I'm going to click in the border, and it automatically placed the checkerboard. But what I want you to notice is I had a long, I don't remember, horizontal border in here, so it added blocks, but these blocks are not square. And I know I want them to be square if I want my checkerboard to be squared. One, by seeing the square here, but I can also look in my sketchbook because every time I click the auto border and put a new border in there, it puts those blocks into my sketchbook. So if I click on the sketchbook and go to blocks, there they are right there, and I can see they are supposed to be squares. So I could just go over to borders, and I could just kind of eyeball it, and I could come down to where it says blocks and border. My horizontal ones, I could just keep increasing till it kind of looks square. I could do the same thing on the vertical. That's not square, that's pretty close. But to check it, I would prefer that they were square because it's going to be easier to piece unless I'm foundation piecing if it is actually a square. So if I click on Print and Export and just click on one of the blocks, it will pop up and tell me how big that block is. It is 6.39 inches wide by 6 inches high because I had the border set for 6 inches. The ones on the side are 6 inches by 6.2 inches. So they're not square. I would really like them square, and I can sit here and do a whole bunch of math, but I can get Electric Quilt to do it for me. If I go back to the Borders tab, and I do want to say, if you change any of the borders, what you had in your design is going to disappear. It won't stay there. But I'm just going to use this to figure out what size I want. So I'm going to click on the Borders tab, and way over toward the right hand side there are two that are going to be really helpful for this. There's tile squares and tile on point. Remember I showed you the diamonds? They're going to come in as tile on point. The one that I have right now with the checkerboard is squares. So what these two borders do is force these blocks in the border to be square, and to do that it will add a spacer strip inside it so they get to be square. Okay, so I'm going to click on tile squares, and this border is selected because it's gray. And you can see it added little spacer squares right here. It also changed my border size over here, and I cannot change that in this. I can't put in a new number. It's locked, okay? So I can't drag it, nothing. The only way I can change the size of my blocks is by increasing or decreasing the number in the quilt. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's actually, yeah, there's 7 horizontal and there's 6 vertical. So if I had more, it's going to have a narrower border. If I had less, it's just going to make a wider border so that it's forcing the squares. Well, I would like to know what size these blocks are, so I'm going to click on Design, and I really need to put a color in here because right now Electric Quilt doesn't see it as anything. It's just hollow. This is just a placeholder. So I'm going to go to the Fabric Tools, and I'm going to put color in a couple places. I'm going to put color in some blocks, and I'm also going to put color in those spacers. Now I'm going to go over to Print and Export again, and I'm going to click on this block, and it tells me, okay, this block is 8 by 8. If I click on this one, it also is 8 by 8, and that's actually a good size unless you don't like the ratio to the panel, because an 8 by 8 can be divided up fairly evenly depending on what we had. Let's just look here again real quick. Yeah, that would work because our checkerboard is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 goes into 8 twice, so those would be 2-inch squares. So that would work really well for this one. So I'm going to leave it at 8 by 8. But the other thing I want to find out is how big these spacers are, because I would prefer to add them to that inside border. Okay, so I'm going to click on that one. That spacer, I don't care how long it is because it's kind of mitered here. What I want to know is the height, and it is 1/2 inch on my horizontal spacers, and then I want to click on the vertical one, and its width is 1.63. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the Borders tab, and this is where I was having problems today. I'm going to switch back to my inner border, and it was 1 inch. So I'm going to add the width of the spacers to that. So I want my horizontal. So I want to take the check mark out of the all, and my top and bottom borders I want to be the same, and my left and right borders I want to be the same. So my top and bottom borders are my horizontal ones. So here's where my problem came in, and I'm going to do it just so you can see, but I wasn't catching it in class. I'm going to type in, my spacer was 1.63, so I want to add 1 inch to that, so it's going to be 2.63. When I tab out of there, here's where my problem was. It is not taking the 0.63. So we can rectify that. So right now it will only take in 1/4 inch increments. So if I go over to my work table option, so it's the little gear on the left hand side, and click on that, and then I go to the snap settings, right here where the nudge settings, they're set at 1/4 inch. I'm going to change it to 1/8 inch, but I want you to see that you can also go to a 1/16 and a 32nd. So I'm going to go to 1/8 and 1/8 and say OK. Okay, so my nudge has been changed to 1/8 inch increments instead of the 1/4 inch. I have unchecked the all button, so I have my top and bottom borders are going to be the same, and my left and right borders are going to be the same. So for my left and right, which were my vertical spacers, it was 1.63, so I'm going to add that to the 1 inch. So I'm going to go 2.6, and I'm going to actually go 2.5. And my top and bottom was only 1/2 inch extra, so I'm going to change that to 1.5. And you can see that my spacers are gone. Okay? I'm going to go back to the Design tab, and I'm going to click on Auto Borders again. I can put the same one in. And now you can see they look square, but let's check it. So I'm going to go Print and Export. Let's just click on one of the blocks, and look, it's 8 inches, and that one is 8 inches. And let's just go back to Design and the fabric layout and just put fabric in there. I wouldn't leave those colors, and go back to Print and Export. If I click on this, now my height, my finished height is 1.5 inches by 48 inches on the horizontal borders, and on my vertical borders my width is 2.62. I would say that was 2 5/8, and my height is 29 inches. So now I have reasonable numbers to work with. Let's go back to the design. At this point, I can color this any way I want to. So let's just do this. And let's go, doesn't really matter, it's whatever you want. Let's go with a navy. I'm going to swap color and put it into all of my blue blocks. And then this is kind of white already, but I'm going to make it a white just because I can. I'm going to swap all that. If I'm happy with it, I'm going to click Add to Sketchbook. So one of the reasons we needed the spacers was because this panel was an odd size, but you might need it on other quilts as well if you were making squares. So let's look at what happens if we do a different auto border. So let's go Auto Borders, and this time let's use diamonds. And let's just do let's do this one. Click it, and now let's just check these because first let me go back. I want to show you it switched it to the on point. And if I had done this to start with, to find out my spacer size, I would have followed the same process, but I could have set up my tile on point. Let's just go look at this and see if they're square. So let's go print and export. I'm going to click on this, and it's 8 inches, and it's 8 inches. And it's actually measuring from here to here. So it's going to be an odd size going this way. Let's see what happens if no, I can't do that. I could do my rotary cutting to check it and preview, and it is a weird size. So it's 3 11/16 is how high my strip is. So I might want to go in and play with that so that I get a more normal size in there. I'm not going to do that for this video, but you could go and keep adjusting and checking to see how big that square is. Or you could do the math. How wide is it going to be to have an 8-inch tall block? I'm not going to do that this time or right now. The other thing I wanted to show you is anytime we put blocks in here, we can edit them. A really nice one for editing would be an applique one. So if I go back to Design and Auto Borders, so most of the blocks are squares, but there are others that are a 1:2 ratio. So mostly it seems to be in the swags, and so I don't know. You might like this for this. So if I click it, that's really tight, and on the swags it really wouldn't matter whether it was exact or not because it's applique. So I would go back to the borders, and I would change the number of blocks in there. I'm in the wrong one. Let's select the right one. Let's drop this back to 3 and this one to 2. Go back to the design. So now I have much wider swags. Can't say that I love that, but let's choose something else. Let's go, pickets. And let's put this one in there. I'm going to need to go back to the borders and see it's set in the same place where I was last time. So let's just go back to the number. Whoops, I don't want to do that. Design. I don't know. There must be static in the air or something. Go back to this. There. Borders. And I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to increase. It should still be at the 8. So the 7, that's too far. Nope, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6x4. Check the print and export again and click on it. We're back to 8-inch blocks. So this added it into my my sketchbook. It's right here. So if I wanted to edit this block, I can do that. So I would go to my block work table. I would look in my sketchbook. I would select this, say edit. So let's say I didn't want the square in a square. I'm going to do the pick tool, and if you click on one and then delete, it's going to go away. If you keep holding delete, you just keep clicking and they will keep going away. So now I just have a square and stripes. I'm going to go to color, and I could recolor these. I'm going to recolor the whole thing. Let's make this red, white, and let's go gold. No, I don't want to do that because they're going to be touching each other. So let's put in a brownish gold and I don't know, a lighter gold, whatever. I'm going to add it to my sketchbook. I'm going to go back to my quilt work table because I can just bounce back and forth between them. And now I can go to, I don't want to be on print and export, I want to be on design. I want to do my block tools, and I can scroll over. There's the block that was added automatically. Here's the other one, and I can just replace all of these blocks with this one. If I hold down the control key, it's going to do all of them. I do need to rotate them because it's not auto-rotating for me anymore. Okay, if I was doing this, I would also edit my corner ones. Oh, this one needs to be rotated still too. So now I don't have my square and a square in all of these blocks. I just wanted to show you can edit it. I don't necessarily love that border. Another thing you can do once you have those set up, you can go to the library, the block library, and there are border blocks right here. And it's some of the same ones that are in the Auto Borders, I believe, but there are others. Maybe not, maybe they're all in the Auto Borders, but I can pick and choose out of here as well and drop them in there. I could also just use regular blocks to put in there if there was something I liked. So let's go Classic Pieced. I could just choose chains, add it to my sketchbook, close, and now I'm going to set a block. I can choose the chain, and I can just drop that in there. So it makes it really easy to change my borders. Again, that's really wild. This is just a quick slideshow of some Auto Borders I put on here. I did not take the time to figure out the exact square, but I did recolor them. I was just eyeballing the squares on these. But these all came out of Auto Borders. And then I switched to a different panel, and I did give you that in the second class. This panel is in the file I had you put on your computers. And here I took just a part out of the panel. So play with it, have fun. Hopefully that's enough information to get you started. Thanks for watching.